Welcome to this edition of Weather to Watch. It is the 15th of February 2025, and there is a lot to talk about, so let's get right to it. What I'm watching is quite a bit. Lots of snow with two storms, one ongoing, another one is going to form in the central U.S., and it may have impacts through much of the Northeast. We'll just have to wait and see what the exact track of that storm is. Extreme cold building in. We're talking about low temperatures, not wind chills, but low temperatures down in the minus 30s. And as I said, we have that other storm that's coming in midweek. The current storm is producing heavy rain, snows, and a severe weather potential. We'll talk about all of it. Start with the U.S. visible loop, which I love to show. It just has so much detail a lot of times. Put that into motion. You can see this storm is juicy. You can just literally see the cloud bands coming out the Gulf with streaming bands of clouds and moisture coming in there, which is what gives much of the central and eastern U.S. the precipitation profile that it gets, because that Gulf juts westward like that and allows all that to flow up into the U.S. Anyway, as you can see, this is a pretty potent system with the colder tops of the thunderstorm showing up there. And this is a multifaceted storm with severe weather potential here. Heavy flooding, Kentucky, centered on Kentucky, and eventually pretty good snows, especially in northern New England, and we'll detail all that in a second. Here's the 500 millibar flow, trough of low pressure, just very clearly defined from the Dakotas down to West Texas. So all the uplift out ahead of this is pretty significant, and there's still a huge amount of Arctic air available behind this system to fuel another storm, hint, 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 that I think is coming later in the week. The storm that is main stage this afternoon and into the evening hours is certainly the one in the Tennessee River Valley, quickly moving up into the northeastern U.S. Here's a radar loop with some of the overlaid reports. So if you see the green dots with the red around them, those are flood reports. That's probably as good a place as any to start. Take a look at some of those right through the heart of Kentucky, parts of Tennessee. If we click on a few of these, we see that some of these are just flood reports, like a flood, water across the highway, very, very common report up there. And then these darker green dots here, 2.28 inches of rain near Walden, Kentucky. We have another radar report, 2.26 ground truth rain there. That's around Gatlin, Tennessee. And so basically, these areas have gotten a lot of rain from the previous storm. So anything that's falling on top of these areas now is causing problems for those folks. Speaking of problems, as this rain area moves up to the northeast, you can see that we change from green dots to the kind of light purple bluish dots. Those are snow reports, and this has just started really in these areas here. So you're seeing just a 0.2 inch snow report there in Maryland. A few more reports up in Pennsylvania. This had a heavy little snow band go through. You can see it on the radar. So 5 inches reported there. And if we keep going up, we don't have any snow reports yet, but this is definitely snow now. And this part of the world is really where the winter storm warning is in effect, and where ultimately the heaviest snow is going to fall. And the only other thing that's going on are some lighter snow bands back through parts of Michigan and Wisconsin. These are storm reports for about the last 3 hours or so. So you can see here, Wisconsin had a nice little 4.5 inch snow total near Lafarge, but you can see what band produced that pretty clearly. And that, again, it's not a storm; it's just kind of an uplift area in the atmosphere producing that snow. But the point is, all the air is cold enough to support snow over a vast central and northern and eastern part of the country, and that's not going to change for about the next week. To wrap up this first storm, I'll just turn on the HRRR forecast for precipitation type, and you can clearly see it follows a trend here of rain bands with thunderstorms, and then heavy rain, and then snow on the northern cap of that, and a little bit of ice in the middle. I don't see anything in that front getting too out of hand. It's mostly rain and snow, but maybe toward the end in coastal areas of Maine it could be an issue, and there's some discrepancy among the models as to how bad that'll be, by the way. Then we have another little clipper system that's making its way toward the end of that loop from Nebraska through Missouri. That's not the next storm, by the way. That's just an interesting and another little snow feature that I get to talk about. 3, 2, 1. National Weather Service is in pretty good agreement on snows. If you live in upstate New York, New Hampshire, Vermont, much of Maine, you're talking 8 to 9, 10 inches of snow pretty much in the bag. Since these are National Weather Service offices coordinating, you'll see these rather strange, just sort of gaps, discontinuity areas, like right there. That's where one office is saying a lot more snow is going to fall, but it hasn't been translated over the boundary, so to speak. But these are 19-inch snow totals up here in upstate Maine, so pretty significant if that pans out. And that's for the next 48 hours. National Weather Service's opinion of snow doesn't count any storms following, let's say, Sunday night. So very significant up there. A whole host of winter weather advisories, winter storm warnings. Again, some question maybe as to whether this will be an ice issue off the coast of Maine. We'll see what happens with that. Big flood watch in effect all throughout the Mississippi and Tennessee River valleys, Ohio, I should say, and Tennessee River valleys. And then we have various flood warnings and flash flood warnings in effect through that area as well. So very, very juicy. This is one model's opinion of rainfall, and this is through Sunday. And some of this has already fallen since I've recorded this, but you're talking about a large area here of 3-inch totals through the heart of Kentucky, 4-inch totals from just near Memphis up into the heart of Kentucky. So that's through Sunday. And this is falling on saturated ground. So a storm last week dumped a lot of rain. So this is actually adding to that, making this situation a little more serious. So we have snow, and then we have the heavier rains. And then we have severe weather potential. This is the Storm Prediction Center, an enhanced risk. That's the 1 out of 5 risk threat index there. So this enhanced risk area all throughout this part of the world. And usually when you look at these, by the way, it's assumed that the thunderstorms are going to start on the western end of this and move this way, and that's the case here. So these guys won't get that severe weather till later tonight. This outlook goes through tomorrow morning. And the reason I dwell on this is because it's very common in the deep south, first of all, to get severe weather and tornadoes in February. It's also very common for these things to rock and roll through the middle of the night. There is no a lot of times in the Great Plains, you might have a dying down of severe weather after the peak heating or maybe into the evening. But in the deep south, where you have such rich moisture values, unstable air throughout the night, there really isn't much of an opportunity that temperatures are really even cool all that much. And then you have a powerful jet stream adding to that. So they're watching for severe weather all night tonight. And as of this recording, I didn't see any watches yet, but I'm sure they're forthcoming. And if we look at analog pattern matching, you see on the tornado side of things, in the tri-state area there of Mississippi Delta and Arkansas and portions of Louisiana, a 10% risk of a tornado within about it's 110 kilometers, so that's about 50 miles or so of any given point. So that's significant as well. And all that's showing you is that situations like this in the past have produced tornadoes in that bullseye area. So those people are watching that very carefully. Switching gears entirely, there is a extreme cold watch in effect for South Dakota, much of the area of Montana, northern Montana, northeast Montana, parts of South Dakota, parts of Minnesota. And let's show you a series of maps. The colors are departures from normal. The actual temperatures are indicated here. And if you can't quite make that out, these readings up here are in the -20s, almost actually -30s in that purple color right there, I believe. So much of the country below normal is indicated by the green and blue. This is Monday's lows. Tuesday's lows, the cold air expands. The blue star is the coldest forecast in the country, so it belongs in Montana for days in a row here. We're talking about -30s commonly through this part of the world here. Notice that the freezing line, if I were to draw that in, it's something like right about there or so. So any storm, hint, hint, that can kind of circle around and ride on the edge of that cold air is going to produce more snow, and that actually is exactly what's going to happen. On Wednesday, a large portion of the country now well below normal. Low temperatures -7 in Kansas City, Omaha -13, but again -20s and -30s common in that extreme cold watch area, with temperatures getting down close to freezing, not quite in coastal Texas, but pretty close. And then finally on Thursday morning, -10 in Kansas City. This is the widest extent of sub-zero lows of the entire week due on Thursday morning before things begin to turn around. We'll go to Glasgow, Montana. This is a long-range 15-day outlook, but notice that from Sunday tomorrow through Wednesday, the highs will be below zero. In fact, only a high of -11 up there on Monday. They finally break out of this next weekend, it looks like. Coming back home a little bit closer to the mid part of the country. This is Kansas City. Not as cold, obviously, but below freezing until the end of the week, certainly. And lows Thursday, Friday, and Saturday morning well below zero, -16, -13, and -13. So on the subject of cold air and storms, this is the Euro. Actually, this is the Ensemble Euro's opinion of snowfall through Friday. So this a lot of this is going to include the current storm and what it's going to do over the next about day or so. Some of this up in the Northeast, maybe as much as half, depending on where that low tracks, is due to this storm right here. This is new snow. And so there's going to be a low that tracks right through here. And if you believe the European model, it takes it more out to sea instead of curving it back to the north. That fits with climatology a lot in this flow pattern. However, if that were to back up, it would add significantly to the snows that are already forecast to be pretty good in the New England area for sure. And as I have mentioned before, that's my hometown right there. Well, my hometown in Chicago, but I've lived in Springfield most of my life. And so a winter storm watch already hoisted for that area in Missouri and Kansas. And this is Saturday, and this is for a storm on Tuesday. So pretty high confident we're going to get some snow here around my house. So this is a nice review of all the upcoming storms. We have the current situation. This is the GFS model we're looking at, so we'll just kind of advance this in time here. And this is what's happening basically through Sunday in the overnight hours, that low pressure area developing and moving up through the eastern seaboard, all that snow and access to a lot of moisture off the Atlantic, really wringing out those snow totals as we showed you. Backlash snow and lake effect snows take over at that point. We have a weak little weather system, and that's really just a little clipper system right here. That's not the next storm. That's just another little snow system wringing out whatever moisture is available in that very cold atmosphere. If we continue to move this forward, you'll see what's happening here. There's another good little snow occurring in southeast Kansas, southern Missouri. Keeping my eye on that one right here. And that is going to be, that stops right there, 18Z on Tuesday. So that's noon on Tuesday. So that snow will be going, maybe even some sleet and freezing rain south of that. This storm in turn wraps up. Now there's some debate about where this will end up, where it's going to kind of loop up the eastern seaboard. You'll notice this model, the GFS model, wants to take it out to sea. So while there will be snow in New Jersey and Long Island, places like that, the New England is largely left out of this storm. That's one model's opinion. So this right here, this looping right here this is going to be very interesting because, again, I live in that snow band right there. And then what happens on the East Coast, and some models are curving it upwards. So, and it's way out yet. That's, right here we're talking about Wednesday evening. So again, for a computer model, it's kind of pushing it a little bit, but we'll wait and see. It certainly is an active pattern of weather. If you live in one of these zones, stay alert and stay safe. That'll wrap it up. If you like this video, please indicate so here in YouTube by liking it, and also think about subscribing to my channel. These come out about every other day or so, and if you're in a winter weather zone, be safe.